Chapter 43, The Universal Use, or its Universal Application. The softest thing in the world dashes against and overcomes the hardest. That which has no substantial existence enters where there is no crevice. I know hereby what advantage belongs to doing nothing with a purpose. There are few in the world who attain to the teaching without words, and the advantage arising from non-action. Another translation. The world's weakest overcomes the world's hardest. Non-existence enters into the impenetrable. Thereby, I comprehend of non-assertion the advantage. There are few in the world who obtain of non-assertion the advantage, and of silence the lesson. And a third translation. The most tender things of creation race over the hardest. A non-material existence enters into the most impenetrable. I therefore recognize an advantage in the doctrine of not doing, wu wei, and not speaking. But there are few in the world who obtain the advantage of non-assertion, wu wei, and silence. This passage begins with a paradox. The softest thing in the world dashes against and overcomes the hardest. At first glance, this seems to be counterintuitive. How can something soft, like water or air, overcome something hard, like stone or metal? And yet this is precisely what happens. Think of how water, over time, can carve canyons out of rock, or how a steady stream can break down even the toughest barriers. And it's not through force, but through persistence and flexibility. Lao Tzu is not only speaking of physical phenomena, but also of the subtle, often unseen forces that shape our lives and the world around us. This chapter highlights the power of gentleness, softness, and flexibility, qualities that often seem weak on the surface, but possess a quiet, endearing strength. In human terms, the soft approach might be understood as patience, humility, and non-resistance. We often think that to overcome challenges, we must push harder, resist more, and fight against the things that stand in our way. But Lao Tzu reminds us that sometimes the most effective way to deal with obstacles is to learn to adapt, to flow around them, and to persist with this quiet strength. This is the essence of yielding. What might appear to be giving up or stepping aside is in reality a powerful strategy for long-term success. So consider this in your own life. When you're faced with a difficult person or situation, the instinct might be to confront it head on with force or even stubbornness. But what happens when you take a different approach. When you are patient, when you listen more than you speak, when you respond with calm rather than anger, these soft responses can diffuse tension and create openings for real change. The chapter continues, "That which has no substantial existence enters where there is no crevice." This line expands on the previous idea by suggesting that what is formless or intangible, like the wind, like love, like ideas, can penetrate where physical things cannot. Think about how air seeps into the smallest cracks, or how water will always find a way through even the tiniest gaps. In a similar way, things that are unseen or unmeasured can have a profound influence in spaces where the rigid and the hard cannot reach. And this can apply to the power of thought, emotion, and spirit. In life, not everything of value is visible or concrete. The greatest shifts often happen in the invisible realms, within our minds, our emotions and mood, our connections with others. A kind word can penetrate oftentimes deeper than a sharp rebuke. A moment of stillness can clear the mind more than hours of struggle. And Lao Tzu then points to the idea of Wu Wei, the principle of non-action. "I know hereby what advantage belongs to doing nothing with a purpose." So, non-action, or Wu Wei, doesn't mean literal inaction. It's not about passively sitting by while life unfolds around you. Rather, it refers to a way of acting that is in harmony with the natural flow of life. It's about responding effortlessly, without force or aggression, to what comes your way. This is a concept that can feel foreign to us, especially in a world that celebrates hustle, effort, and constant striving. But Lao Tzu is inviting us to trust in the natural rhythms of life. Instead of forcing outcomes or trying to control every detail, he encourages us to step back and allow things to unfold organically. This can be incredibly freeing. When we let go of our need to constantly push, we create space for life to flow through us and around us. We find that things often resolve themselves more smoothly when we aren't trying to force them into place. Think of it like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grip, the more it slips away. But if you relax, the water rests there naturally. And this doesn't mean we should never act, but rather we should act in accordance with the flow of things. Move when the moment is right. Act when the conditions are aligned. There is wisdom in waiting, in observing, and in knowing when to move and when to be still. This balance is the key to effective, effortless action. And Lao Tzu ends this chapter with an important observation. There are few in the world who attain to the teaching without words, and the advantage arising from non-action. So, it seems to be pointed out that this way of living is rare. Most people rely on words, explanations, and rules to guide them. But the deepest wisdom often comes without words. It is felt, experienced, and understood in silence. Similarly, the greatest actions are often those that come from a place of non-doing, from a quiet, centered space within. The teaching without words is the wisdom you gain from living in harmony with life's flow, from observing the subtle forces at play and recognizing that not everything needs to be controlled or understood through language. The advantage of non-action is that it allows life to move naturally, without unnecessary interference from the ego. So, what can we take from this chapter? Well, it teaches us the power of gentleness and softness, reminding us that there is great strength in yielding and adapting to life's challenges. It speaks to the effectiveness of the unseen, the forces that penetrate where the physical cannot. And most importantly, it invites us to trust in the natural flow of life through Wu Wei, to act in harmony with the moment, without forcing, without striving, but simply responding when the time is right. By embracing these principles, we learn that the most profound changes and the deepest wisdom often come from what seems soft, invisible, and effortless. In yielding, we overcome. In doing nothing, we allow everything to fall into place.